Welcome. You've got mail.
Fred's remnants are moving through the northeast. Hurricane Grace aiming for the Yucatan Peninsula, and in between the two is little Henri moving steadily westward and just under hurricane strength. And we're going to look at everything that's going on tonight and maybe throw in the kitchen sink on top of it all. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 6317-561125 for the best prices in town. And this might not be a bad idea, just in case. If you're in southern New England, if you're on Long Island, maybe the Jersey coast, might be a good idea to take some inventory on stuff that you might need just in case. The website is omnitruevalue.com, and wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs. And we've got Halloween coming, so that is included in here. If you want your home decorated, or maybe you want to do this as a business, give them a call. They are at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, 631-957-5106. And it's liholidaylighting.com. Both Omni and Giannini are local businesses. It's always a good idea to support local businesses. So, Mr. Rayo, curious, we'll start off with your thoughts on what you think may or may not happen.
Joe, we have been looking at this now since yesterday, and even at the beginning of this week, we began to get a little leery about what Henri was going to do. I've been watching the GFS, especially over the last couple of days, and it has been pushing Henri with each passing run. And I'm not talking about now the intermediate run. I haven't even looked now at the GFS 18Z intermediate run, but I've been looking at the primary runs, the 0Z and the 12Z runs over the past 4 or 5 runs, and it has been pushing Henri with each run further to the west by about 50 to 100 miles. And now it has gotten to the point, and obviously if you saw the 12Z run this afternoon, that Monday morning they have this thing, Henri, located almost smack dab in the middle of Long Island, only about 40 statute miles to the east of Midtown Manhattan, for goodness sake. So that's only one run, though. The other model runs have been placing the storm further out to the east, but still, even those runs have been, in their own way, pushing the storm closer toward the Atlantic seaboard. In some cases, it's been a situation where they've had the storm, tracking north and then all the way to the northwest on a northwest trajectory of all things, and then kind of skimming along and past the eastern seaboard. There have been a couple of situations where we've seen paths where the storm has come up and actually stalled and did like a little bit of a loop-de-loop. That's because the upper system that's coming in from the Ohio Valley is apparently going to try to capture this for a short while. The storms will become what we call vertical. The surface system will become vertical or vertically stacked with the upper system, causing that stalling effect, that idling effect, and then that little bit of a loop-de-loop before it heads on out to the east. There are a lot of questions that still need to be answered in the next 4 days. But again, the two key players here are going to be, as I just mentioned, the upper level storm coming in from the Ohio Valley, the strengthening subtropical high over the western Atlantic. And as that subtropical high is strengthening, it's beginning to flex its muscles and serving as a path to push Henri back to the west. So Henri has, if you will, a corridor of uncertainty between the low coming in from the east, from the west, and the subtropical high building in from the east. And so it's kind of heading or trying to head north and even getting pushed a bit more to the northwest. So all of these things are going to come into play over the next 4 days as to where the storm exactly is going to go. But I voted, by the way, on the survey tonight, and I went for yes, in one way, shape, or form, be it Long Island or maybe Cape Cod and the islands or maybe down East Maine. I think that Henri is going to indeed touch somewhere along the northeast coastline before this weekend is over.
And if you haven't seen the poll on the chat board, the question is a simple one. Does Henri make landfall in the Northeast this weekend? So I know the Northeast is a big area of geography. So I'm talking anywhere from the New Jersey coast to the Maine coast, somewhere in there. And so far we have 77 votes, Joe, and 66% of the vote is with you and says yes. 34% of the vote says no. You may there are a couple of points that you make that I think are really important here, and this is where this is where I think you see the difference in terms of the approach of how you look at these things. I'm seeing posts from people that it's focusing solely on the fact that they're looking at a model and saying it's shifting east, it's shifting west, and back and forth and back and forth. And it was a point I was going to make if you weren't going to make it. It's not about whether the models shift east or whether they shift west. That is a consequence of what is going on in the atmosphere, because I think if you ask most of these people what is going on in the atmosphere that's doing this, they won't be able to tell you. Okay. And you just
they're looking at is the track.
Right.
All they're looking at is the track. They're not looking at what's the mechanics of what's going into this.
And I would emphasize to any young meteorologists up and coming, the models are the last thing you should be looking at. What you should be looking at in terms of what is happening with the trough in the Great Lakes that's going to drop down into the Ohio Valley, and the ridge in the Atlantic that's going to build northwestward into New England and into southeastern Canada, because ultimately it's going to be the subtleties of those two factors. We know the trough that's out in the northern plains is going to get sheared off and move up into central Canada. So otherwise, all of this would be a moot point, because if it was coming east, it would just kick everything out to the east, and that would be the end of that. So we can kind of put that one to bed. We know that that's going to be in place. And the only other thing I would mention that I think is also very important is to watch the strength of Henri in the coming next 3 days. If Henri if some of the intensity models are actually, there's a few of them that are bringing it up to a strong 2, and I think there's even one that has it as a category 3. If this winds up intensifying, because once we get through the next few days, the shear is going to disappear, and you're going to see this strengthen to a hurricane. Once, if we wind up with a storm that's stronger than forecast and stronger than modeled, then you have to look higher up in the atmosphere for the steering. And if that's the case, a stronger storm is likely to be drawn more to the right than to the left. If it winds up being a bit more on the weaker side, then you're going to wind up something with more to the left as opposed to the right. So that's the other part of this equation that we need to look at closely. You could sit out there, if we watch this and suddenly Henri develops into a category 3 hurricane, that would be formidable if we were going to be facing that, but that changes what the outcome might be. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and it's Wednesday. We're going to probably be going through these machinations for tomorrow and for Friday, and then we can kind of zero in on where this is all going to go. But I mean, certainly we're at the point here where we could say that the risks for parts of the Northeast seem to be rising this evening. I think that's a fair statement.
Levi Cohen, who of course is the gentleman who has put together this wonderful website of tropical tidbits, has also been doing commentary on his website about all of the tropical systems, not just Henri, but also of Grace and the remnants of Fred. And he brought up a very interesting point in his discussion or conversation earlier in the day, and that is that the waters of the Atlantic are very warm up to about the latitude of the Delmarva Peninsula. and then there's a notable drop off in temperature, much cooler water. Now, that would suggest that this storm, Henri, if it does really begin to rev up, conceivably could get up to maybe a Category 2, dare I even say maybe a Category 3. But then as it encounters that cooler water, it obviously is going to begin to diminish some in strength. This is what Levi Cohen had mentioned, but he also mentioned that in a lot of cases, Joe, when we have in the past, historically, very strong systems moving along the Atlantic seaboard, case in point, the Long Island Express of 1938, which came charging up the coast at like 40 or 50 miles an hour and hit Long Island. That's one thing. But if it's a slower system, then the storm will have a longer amount of time to languish over the colder waters and kind of diminish quicker. That actually happened, it seemed, with Gloria in 1985, where it was a very potent Category 3 storm. Everybody said, batten down, this is it, it's going to be all over. But then as it continued north into the colder waters just south of Long Island, it shriveled up to a Category 1, and it did some damage and did bring some power lines down or whatever like that, but it was not the massive cataclysmic storm that Dr. Neil Frank was alluding to way back when, almost 40 years ago. And people were actually upset by him. He said, hey, you told us it was going to be a Category 3. It was only a Category 1, as if they were actually disappointed that it wasn't the cataclysmic system that it might have been. In this case, with Henri, it appears that it will be moving, but it certainly is not going to be moving at 30 or 40 miles an hour up the coast. And in fact, if that upper low from the Ohio Valley catches it, it's going to slow down and actually sit for a while and do that little loop-de-loop. And if it does that over the colder waters just south of Long Island, we may be looking at a hurricane or a tropical cyclone that actually is diminishing somewhat in strength. So that may be something in our favor if it indeed the storm takes a track closer to, let's say, the Jersey coast or the New Jersey or the Long Island coast or the southern New England coast later on in the weekend.
Yeah, there's a couple of things about that are tricky, though. One is, I noticed that the GFS earlier today with a track that actually was along or just east of 70, because if you follow it up from off North Carolina, it actually goes northeast, then north, and then northwest. Now, the ocean water temperatures, you get out beyond the Baltimore Canyon, the ocean water temperatures there, the shelf water's colder, but the water out like southeast of the buoy off Fire Island, if you go a little bit further south and east of there, it's going to be it might be coming in from a place where the ocean water temperatures could be a bit more supportive for a bit longer. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's a certainty that we're going to have something coming in from the southeast, because that would not be a good thing all the way around, particularly because we have a full moon going early next week. So tides are going to start to run high as it is. But but yes, you have to also take into account certainly the fact that you don't have a deep trough to the west. So it's not as if this thing is going to be accelerating to 40 miles an hour, which minimizes the impact of the cooler water because it's moving so fast. So that, I think, is something that we're going to figure out when we get to Friday. We'll probably be able to put a little more specificity into the forecast in terms of what to expect and what's going to happen to Henri when it gets into the cooler water, if it slows down and stalls, if it goes and does a loop. I wonder, Joe, maybe you can do this a little while. I'm going to give you your sharing capabilities. Maybe you could see if you could pull up a map of Esther, because I think that might not be a bad parallel to this. Esther from 19.
And also maybe Bob. Bob, in fact, we're right at the anniversary, the 30th anniversary of Bob in 1991.
Bob in 91 might be. I think the upper air might have been a little bit different, but but in terms of the track, it might be something to look at. But take a look at Esther, because Esther in 61 was coming up just to the west of 70, and then it slowed down, kind of did a loop. It was a strong Cat 3, I think almost a Cat 4 when it was moving up the coast, and then it got into that the box, what we call the snowstorm box, and that's also the hurricane weakening box, or it can be. But that might be a good storm to look at with all of this. Maybe we could, find the upper air on it or something and take a look. Bill Rogers, you asked a few questions, but the one that kind of stood out to me was the fact that about how could you not look at the models because everybody's posting them all over the place in Facebook. I know that this is why in the Joe Chaffee version of the 10 commandments, there would be an 11th commandment. Well, actually 12. The 11th commandment is thou shalt not wear white after Labor Day. The 12th commandment would be thou shalt not forecast shop. Okay? Just this way you will avoid being confused. I think the one, we've been over this so many times. There's just so much crap that's out there. And everybody's looking at, everything. We all have access to it. They, wallpaper models. By the way, we should point out that the European does nothing with this. Okay, the European basically wipes the storm off the map after 72 hours.
What is wrong with the European?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. It's the only one that seems to be doing this. I mean, even when you look at the intensity models, you're not seeing any kind of option with regards to the intensity model, maybe showing that maybe there's an intensity model or two that shows it weakening and wiping out. We're not seeing that, interestingly enough.
It is kind of weird. You look at what the other models, the Icon, the Canadian, the GFS, and you say to yourself, "Oh boy, I can hardly wait to see what the European is saying about it." Even for goodness sake, Joe, the NAM, I got to look at the 18Z run of the NAM through, and at 84 hours, we're talking about not late Sunday, early Monday. We're talking about late Saturday, early Sunday. The NAM almost practically has this thing at Long Island. It's moving much faster. But it's there. You can see it. It's obvious.
It is there.
And yet you look at the European, and the European does nothing with it.
And usually the NAM likes to mimic the European to an extent. So it's been really surprising that it doesn't have now every once in a while we've had situations where the European is stood alone on something, and it would be the only one showing something that's complete, almost 90 degrees from 180 degrees from what the other models are showing, and then it's hit would hit the ball out of the park and get it right. I would just point out though that the European has not been very good at all with these tropical systems. It's wiped out a bunch of them that have not disappeared off the map. So I think that is an important point this time around. I would expect the model to pick up finally, maybe on the overnight run, that it'll come in and start looking like the others. I mean, that's my guess. Here's the satellite tonight, and of course, you could see the three systems. The remnants of Fred producing severe weather did produce severe weather across Pennsylvania tonight. We had numerous severe thunderstorm warnings and a couple of tornado warnings that were put up in a few places. It seems to be like we've kind of reached the peak of those storms as sunset is underway. And, of course, Henri getting some northerly shear. If you notice, the storm is kind of tilted a little bit to the southern side. And this is the northerly shear that is working at it. It's not a ton of northerly shear, but it's probably just enough that it's keeping it from getting stronger, other than, in very small increments. And that shear is forecast to increase some later tonight and Thursday, and then gradually decrease as we get into Friday and the weekend. So I maybe once we get toward Friday, and at that point, Henri will be left of 70 degrees west. That's when we'll probably start to see it strengthen. I always like to look at 30 and 70 is kind of a benchmark where usually storms that are going to impact the Northeast are south of 30 and west of 70 in order for us to be in serious risk. It's not a hard, fast rule, but I think it works more often than not. So let's pay attention to where it is when it gets to 70 west. In the meantime, Grace is a hurricane. Still looks like it's undergoing some intensification here. There's not a whole lot of shear in the Caribbean, and it's approaching the northern part of the Yucatan Peninsula. And of course, Henri being sandwiched in the middle of all of this, just kind of a very odd-looking satellite, especially because you don't usually see westward moving systems along 30 degrees north. I mean, they do happen, but it doesn't happen too often that you see a storm moving west up at that northern latitude.
Right. As you were talking, Joe, I've been trying to get the map, especially the upper level map, to show what Hurricane Esther did way back in 1961. So I've got the surface path. I just want to get the upper level, the 500 millibar path off of the NOAA Daily Weather Maps page. So you give me another couple of minutes, I'll probably have that for you.
All right. So while you do that, I'll just go through some of I'll go through a few of the maps and the model plots, and we'll start off with the Hurricane Center's latest forecast, which was at 5 p.m. 29.9 north, 67.6 west. So 30 and 70 roughly is what I was saying as far as sort of a benchmark to look for. Top winds are 70 miles an hour, moving west at 9. So 2.4 degrees is roughly 150 miles. So it's got about 150 miles to go to get to 70 west at 9 miles an hour. So 150 divided by 9 is what? 50, boy, I'm not really good at the 9, 10, 15,
16.6.
So it'll be
16.6.
It'll be at 70 west sometime later tomorrow afternoon. And you'll notice that by 2 a.m. Friday, they have it strengthened to a hurricane. It makes that turn to the right before it gets anywhere close to 75, passes well east of the North Carolina coast. And then, of course, now here's where the upper low comes in play. The Hurricane Center has adjusted their forecast. They moved it 115 or so miles to the west from the previous forecast. So they have it a hurricane 2 p.m. Sunday at 39 and 70, and weakened it a little bit to a tropical storm at 2 p.m. Monday when they are forecasting it over Cape Cod. And you can see, of course, the cone of uncertainty. I think it's a pretty fair estimate to put the back edge of this at New York City at this stage of the game. And maybe they have it too far to the right, but that's their forecast, and certainly I do respect that. Now, here are the tracking models, and these also have been coming to the right. Now, the longitude lines here are 2 degrees. So unlike this morning, for example, where the furthest east model was out near 60 degrees west, now the furthest east model is out at about 67 degrees west. So it's come in by 350 miles. The furthest west model, which earlier this morning was actually over eastern Long Island, is now in Chesapeake Bay. And the vast majority seem to be clustered up the coast along 70 west and right to about Cape Cod. And now we've got 2 models that want to make the turn northwestward and bringing it toward Long Island. But the takeaway here is that left march that these models have been on are suggesting that the ridge is going to be a little stronger up in eastern Canada and building into southeastern Canada from the Atlantic, and or the trough may be a little bit deeper and a little bit sharper and creating more of a southerly flow or even a south-southeast flow in the upper atmosphere, which accounts for those storms that are turning. And by the way, the ones that are turning to the northwest are probably reflecting that upper low, Joe, coming out and kind of grabbing it and pulling it back northwestward.
Yeah. Okay. I'm ready to share here, Joe. So let me just check the share screen. All right. Now I just got to make sure I don't confuse myself here because I got a whole bunch of maps to show. I'll show you first the upper air for Esther. This is from September. What date is this now? I'm looking at. This is September. September 26, 1961, and there's your upper air for Esther. And notice, if you
Wait,
will.
hold on. Did you put it on the screen? Oh, there it goes. Okay, here we go.
Yes. And notice, if you will, that they have what the models have been implying or alluding to for Henri, and that is an upper level low pressure system that is in the Ohio. And there you see that upper low for Esther. And Esther really made a wild loop-de-loop. Well, I'll show you the surface track in a moment, but you can see what they have here, that underneath this upper low is a full-fledged hurricane, Hurricane Esther from 1961, making a really wild loop, if you will, adjacent to the northeast and mid-Atlantic seaboard.
Yeah, the upper air actually is not that different. There are some differences. The trough in this case is further west. Actually, Joe, do me a favor. Give me the screen back for a moment, because I'll put up the upper air.
Okay.
That should match that. So just give me a moment. I'm going to try to bring it up here, and we'll just have to wait for the GFS to load. But interestingly enough, it's not that much different from what we're dealing with now. There are differences. And okay, so now I got it up on the screen. I got the GFS up. And hold on. We'll have it there momentarily.
And by the way, Renata has just come down just a short while ago to mention, Joe, that Barnegat Light today, the water temperature at Barnegat Light, 76.5 degrees. The normal summer temperature average at this time of the year, 71.6. So the water temperature, at least at Barnegat, is running 5 degrees warmer than normal. But in order to maintain, let's say, for a tropical cyclone to maintain, let's say, a Cat 2 or even a Cat 3 strength, you need water temperatures that are more like the lower 80s, which certainly Barnegat Light is not showing. It's pretty warm, much warmer than normal. But in order for, as I mentioned about 10 minutes ago, if you are among those who are rooting for a major hurricane to come this far north, and you want to see that, the one thing that you would need, aside from the warm water temperatures, and if you don't have the warm water temperatures, one thing that you would need is a fast or rapid forward speed, so that it wouldn't give the hurricane time enough to drop down in intensity as it moves over cooler waters. And that's definitely not the case with Henri, because if Henri again gets captured by an upper low and slows down, it's going to linger over cooler waters for a while. So there's your drawback if you want a major hurricane this far north.
Right. And with respect to the GFS here, so here's your trough in the east. It's a little more separated than what we had with what we showed you with Esther. But this part is the important part. And, there's your ridge is building there up toward James Bay, and the upper low is underneath it, and Henri is right there. And what we, again, it's the subtleties of this upper air that we're looking at. And you can see the upper low and Henri kind of become one here. It's almost like a lever, like an arm and a lever coming up from south to north as it lifts it up to the northeast. Now, this is the latest GFS run, which is actually a little bit further east than the prior run. This run took it right over Cape Cod, as opposed to the one before that. And again, it's reflecting the subtleties of the upper low, because now on this run, the upper low is in central Pennsylvania, while on the prior run, it was back more like in southern Ohio and in southern West Virginia. So those are the clues. Those are the things that that we're going to look at in regards to figuring out where this forecast goes. And I'll give
so now do you want me to?
I'll give you the screen back here. Hang on one second. And okay, so here we go, and there you have it. So it's all yours.
Okay, so let me go back to the share screen mode, and I will show you a pretty wild path. I think it's on the screen right now. And you can see this really, I mean, it starts out normal, but then after interaction with that upper low, look what Esther did. It kind of did a loop, a big loop, south and east of New York City. And then finally, as the upper low began to diminish some, and Esther, began to work its way out of it, it went straight north across Cape Cod and the islands, just east of Boston, and made landfall along down East Maine, and then finally withered down to nothing by the time it reached the Gaspé Peninsula of Quebec. But several of these models, Joe, have been indicating a much tighter, smaller loop possible for Henri later on in the weekend, again indicating that perhaps that upper low from the Ohio Valley, as it comes eastward, grabs onto it, and again, the system becomes what we say vertically stacked from the surface level all the way up to like 15, 20,000 feet up. And there you go. And I agree with you. I think this does look indeed very much like what we're looking at with Henri. This, again, is not Henri, but Hurricane Esther from, my goodness, 1961. That is 60 years ago, believe it or not.
I know. I know Johnny Quest was asking about the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream cuts off just north of 35 degrees north and goes, it takes a sharp turn and goes east-northeast off the Virginia coast. It does warm the ocean water temperatures out along 70 degrees west, but you start going west of that and you get into that cooler shelf water. Also, it should be noted, even if water temperatures are running above normal in the box, okay, that is that's not deep layer warm water. It doesn't go down very far. So one good round of winds for a 6 to 12 hour period, and those water temperatures come tumbling down because of upwelling. So we don't have a deep, even in years where, and the year of Bob, we had very warm ocean water temperatures that were above 80, just right along the south shore of Long Island. And it was one of the reasons why Bob held on to pressures down near 950 millibars as it passed near and over Block Island. Those water temperatures were very warm and a little deeper than normal. I don't think that's the case this time around, but it's one of the factors in here in terms of dealing with the strait. But the Gulf Stream does cut out far enough south. It doesn't come quite much, 35, 36 north, and then it goes almost straight east northeast. And Bill Rogers, if I understand you correctly, is what you wrote. I believe the stronger the hurricane becomes, the better chance it moves east of Cape Cod. Yeah, if the stronger the hurricane is, the more the upper air. We have to go higher and higher up in the atmosphere, and usually those storms tend to turn more north and northeast faster than something that's not quite as strong. You need a really, really strong, powerful ridge to drive something in a northwest direction at this latitude. So the stronger and the further north they go, the more of a tendency they have, because of Coriolis and all the other stuff, the more of a tendency that they have to turn more north and then eventually northeast, as opposed to down in the tropical regions. So I think that.
And Peter Bicker.
Go ahead.
Peter Bicker on the chat board is saying, so this could be a repeat of Sandy. And my right off the bat, I would say no, absolutely not a repeat of Sandy, only because if you remember, the path of Sandy took that storm system up from the south, and then it turned radically to the west-northwest across central New Jersey. That path put New York City and Long Island in the worst possible place you'd want to be relative to a tropical cyclone. That would be in the northeast quadrant. And so as a result, we had very strong winds flowing in from the Atlantic Ocean. It's quite unlike a lot of the other historical tropical systems that have passed by the tri-state area over the years. This storm, Henri, looks like it's going to, in spite of it, push toward the northwest. If it continues to move along the path that even the GFS is indicating, it would be to the east of New York City. We would not be in that northeastern quadrant, so we would not be seeing the worst of the winds. And actually, if it tracks the way the GFS has been saying, Joe, the thing that New York City would likely get would be just a good old-fashioned heavy rainstorm or squally rainstorm for a while.
Right.
As we saw with Itaiya last July, Itaiya took a track to the west of New York, and we were in, again, the quadrant of the storm where we were subjected to the strongest winds, which is why so many people lost their power and remained out of power for several days, like yours truly. And we didn't get all that much in the way of rain. There was some rain, but nothing devastating in terms of rain. It was the winds. In this case, if the storm does track as close to us but stays to the east of the tri-state area, it would be more of a concern in terms of rain, not in terms of wind, and quite a different situation compared to Hurricane Sandy.
All right, let's turn our attention to Hurricane Grace in the Northern Caribbean, which we've said over and over again that Grace is not going to have an opportunity or the alleyway to turn northward because of the strong ridge that's over the Western Atlantic and across the northern Gulf of Mexico. So it is going to just pretty much go straight west. We do have a reconnaissance aircraft in there now, so I just thought it would be interesting to take a look. The first pass, 990 millibars, which is down from 995 earlier, and the from the last recon that I saw. And looking at the scale, there are 64 to 83 knot winds showing up in the purple wind barbs when the storm came in from the northwest side and went down, and they closed off that center. Now the plane is flying around. So it's certainly carrying the 80 mile an hour winds, and that's what's on the advisory. It's at 19.8 north, 84.9 west, closing in on the north coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. The top winds are 80 miles an hour, moving west-northwest at 16. And you can see their forecast is to move it across the northern Yucatan, come out the other side as a tropical storm, and then strengthen back into a hurricane until ultimately it goes into Mexico in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. The model forecasts, they're pretty much, they've been the same for days and days, and there's been no change here. Moving over the Yucatan, they're all pretty tightly clustered, and we've got a whole bunch of them that continue it on the Pacific side, maybe reforming as a tropical storm once it gets out in the Pacific, which happens every so often. And the intensity model on Grace, looking, you can see they're all in Cat 1 or higher. A couple of them get to Cat 2 before it goes into the Yucatan Peninsula. Brief weakening to a tropical storm, back up to Cat 1 or borderline Cat 2 hurricane in the southwest Gulf, and then it comes, crashing down once it goes inland. I don't remember, did I do the intensity model for Henri?
No, you didn't.
I did not. All right, so let me go. I'm going back to this now, and we're seeing. You can see how all the models have this as at least a Cat 1, except for 2. There's 2 of them, and I guess the European might fall into the category of these 2 models that basically weaken it from here to a tropical depression in 120 hours. But those are the outliers. The rest of them all have it at a Category 1 or higher. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them get to Cat 2, and 2 of them get to Cat 3. in 72 hours. Now, if we're going to see that happen, it would have to be strengthening overnight and during the day tomorrow, or if it holds off and just kind of holds its own until later tomorrow afternoon, and then go through a period of rapid strengthening to get it up to a strong Cat 2 or a Cat 3 in 72 hours time. So the intensity, and then of course you see what happens after that. 96 hours, you start to see them all begin to slope downward, and by 108 hours, now between 96 and 108 hours is probably the time frame that it's very close to southern New England or southeastern New England, and here at this point you can see the weakening that goes on, and then it continues after that fairly rapidly, actually, into hours 120 and 132 hours. So I'm guessing by that point it's probably northeast of Cape Cod or moving into the Gulf of Maine. But the intensity models are pretty supportive here with regards to the upper air conditions that are being indicated that the shear is going to drop off.
Well, as I said, it's going to, the waters are noticeably chillier or cooler, relatively speaking, to places that are, let's say, to the south of the Delmarva area. Although I'm getting the impression, I don't have the figures in front of me, but I get the impression that up to the north, up around Long Island and Cape Cod and Nantucket, those waters are probably running a bit above normal, above what you'd expect.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know that it's enough to really make any difference.
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
No, it's not, Joe. I mean, as I said, you need temperatures. If you really want to see a storm maintain its potency, in the case of Henri, for example, it's either going to have to move very quickly, enough so that even as it passes over the cooler waters, it doesn't lose all that much in terms of strength, or you're going to need those waters to be a lot warmer than, mid and low 70s. I mean, that's pretty good, I guess, for Cape Cod and Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, but it ain't going to happen if unless you go to temperatures at or above 80. The bathwater type weather that you get, let's say, down in the Gulf of Mexico or along the southeast coast of the United States.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days. I'm going to be very, very curious to see whether that trough is a little sharper, if that ridge is a little stronger, or maybe a little weaker. This is going to be the game. But we've got another day or two to kind of sort that out.
Well, now here's the question, because we had already discussed this behind the scenes. We were thinking about taking tomorrow off. Are we still going to do that and come back on Friday, or? Well,
I do have an issue for tomorrow. And that issue is I will not be back. I won't be back until probably 9 o'clock. So if we have to do a show tomorrow night, it's going to have to be around 9:30.
Okay, well, I'll leave that up to you. And
I'm okay with that. So just a heads up to everybody that we're doing a show tomorrow night. It will be at 9:30 Eastern time. So just bear that in mind.
And it looks like we're going to be unlike our normal schedule of taking off on Friday. This may preclude us from taking off on Friday. It would
correct.
Right,
so we'll be on Friday, and we'll probably be on Saturday as well.
Well, I'm not sure about Saturday.
So Reuben Fairchild will get it. Mr. Reuben Fairchild will get his wish that we should be on every waking minute of the day, but he hasn't been around for the last month or so.
Well, if we're on Saturday, we'll have to make a time. I'm thinking that I'm going to be in the Bronx on Saturday. I don't know if it's going to be probably in the afternoon, maybe early evening. More like I would, if I get home, I'll probably be by 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So we may have a show if we do one on Saturday. Probably would be sometime after 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening again. But that is to be decided as we get closer
to be determined.
Yes, to be determined. Et
cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Let's look at what's going on tonight, because we do have some weather going on tonight, which is kind of important. So I'm going to bring up the satellite. I'm just going to bring up a satellite image here where of the Atlantic seaboard. And you can see the remnants of Fred over the Northeast. The bulk of the heavy rain was in western PA and in West Virginia. As advertised, it was basically west of the I-81 corridor. The thunderstorms that developed and moved eastward across Pennsylvania, though, made up for some of the rain as you went to the east. Because if you were in eastern Pennsylvania, for example, it didn't really do very much for a good chunk of the day, but those storms making up for it. Now you can see Henri off the off the east coast of Florida. I didn't bring up a loop because we did look at it before, but let me just bring up the radar to take a look at what's going on right now in the Northeast. And you can see the arc of rain, actually a pretty impressive area of rain up in western and central New York that is moving northeastward. And we've got some flash flood warnings up in the green boxes that you're seeing here on the radar. Some thunderstorms, the stronger thunderstorms from earlier, they have diminished, although we do have 2 severe thunderstorm warnings in south central Pennsylvania at the moment, moving eastward. So the bottom part of that line is still pretty strong. The northern feed part of the line is weakened a bit. There's also some strong storms I'm just noticing in north central PA between Williamsport and Scranton that's moving to lifting up to the northeast. So that whole arm is going to lift up northeastward and slowly weaken as we go through the night. So, Joe, I think you might get a little bit of this during the overnight, but I think you're going to get it in a weaker state when it goes by probably after midnight during the early morning hours. And as far as areas down near the coast in southern New England, Long Island, central and South Jersey, and Point South, probably a very small chance that there could be a passing shower or storm. Also want to look at what's happening in the Tennessee Valley, where we've got also a bunch of flash flood warnings and a couple of tornado warnings up in northern Alabama. Looks like a little severe thunderstorm warning flashed on near Nashville just in the last hour or so. And also seeing some convection in northern Louisiana and northeast Texas, and some showers up and down the Rockies into the southwestern part of the U.S., which WPC was advertising the other day of showing rather substantial rain. Now, of course, a couple of days have passed, but still showing substantial rains across the northern Rockies as well as in the northern plains. Some 2 and 3 inch amounts there. And if you want to use WPC's rainfall forecast map to figure out where this is going, well, you can see where the heavy rain is offshore. So kind of I would say draw a line on the western edge of that dark red and bring it up the coast. I would say WPC maybe is thinking somewhere between Montauk and Cape Cod as a possible track for this. For Henri.
Well, we'll see. Well, Joe, we're still like 4 days away. And I mentioned that the NAM seems to be faster by a good 24 hours compared to the GFS. So hopefully everything will fall into place and come more into focus in the next 2 or 3 days. Maybe the NAM will slow down, or maybe the GFS will speed up. Maybe the European will come alive come alive and say, there is a tropical system out there.
There is a tropical system.
We'll see. But as I said on my Facebook page, or pages, both my professional and my personal pages, Joe Ray Waether, to use the words of the late great Artie Johnson from Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In when he did the German guy with the pit helmet. Very interesting. That's basically what we're looking at over the next few days. A very interesting weather pattern for the northeastern United States.
Well, our audience forecasters on the chat board tonight have voted 149 votes tonight, Joe. 150 votes now. And by the way, 60 likes. And thank you for those of you who have hit the like button. Joe and I always like it when we get to 100 likes. So if you can bring us up to 100 likes, that would be amazing. But on the poll tonight, the question was, does Henri make landfall in the northeastern part of the United States this weekend? 65% of the folks said yes, and 35 said no, which is good because 65 plus 35 equals 100.
It works. It works.
It does
This reminds
work.
me, this survey on a nightly basis reminds me of that CNN show on Saturday mornings with that bald-headed guy Smirkanich. I forgot what his first name is, but he is a radio talk show host as well. And every Saturday he has his own survey about politics or whatever, and he gets like tens of thousands of people in an hour, Joe, just clicking on and reporting what they think about a certain opinion. So this is great. I think this is great. And I tell you true, as we get toward the end of the week and into the weekend, why do I strongly suspect that we're going to see our numbers, the numbers of participants in our show, climb noticeably from 135 now. And even at 135 is a jump from recent nights. We've been in like the 50, 60, 70 count over the last several nights. Now we're up to 135. Dare I say that maybe by the weekend we may have 400, 500, 600 viewers, because they know, as the word spreads throughout social media, they know where to get the best weather forecasts and best weather opinions as to what is going to happen right here on the Joe and Joe Show.
Boy, that was oh Lord. Nice.
Should have had the tape running. We could have used that as a promo, right?
I guess that falls into the category of a shameless self-promotion, which is acceptable on this show.
If we don't do it, who will?
Well, that's correct. Yeah, we don't exactly have a PR department. 77 likes on the board tonight. Thank you. 78 now. So we're only 22 shy of 100. So I'll tell you what. Let's do some Briller Jeopardy. Let's go quickly through this, Joe. Let's do Briller Jeopardy, and maybe, just maybe, by the time we get to the end of it, we will have 100 likes for the first time in a while. Okay, so tonight we've been doing countries and the letters that they start with. So tonight, Joe, you have the letter L. The letter L. And I'm going to tell you right now, one of these you ain't getting. Because
can I put Laos?
Go ahead. Laos is
Laos
right? Is correct.
Right. L.
While you're thinking, Joe Maiano hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you so much, Joe. Most appreciated. And 17 likes to go to get to 100. Next one.
Come on. I haven't done that in a while, have I?
Next nation.
I don't know.
The folks on the chat board have already put up a couple. L.
I got Laos. Laos. Boy, you're a Laos Joe. No, I didn't mean that.
One of these is a very small country with a lot of money.
How about Libya? Libya
is there. Yes, that is correct.
I was thinking about the old Bob Grant, the way Bob Grant used to end his show, right? Mm-hmm. The guy who ran Libya.
Oh, Gaddafi. Right?
Yes. Get Gaddafi.
Good Lord.
Another one that's close by, I think, geographically, is Lebanon.
Lebanon, yes. Also on the list. Correct. And 12 likes to go for 100. Will Joe get all the countries that begin with the letter L before we get to 100 likes? We shall see.
Not likely. Not likely.
Not likely is not a country.
No,
It's a city. It's not a country. Go on.
Oh,
Y-
I remember watching ABC Wide World of Sports many, many years ago with Jim McKay, and there was an athlete, and the athlete came from, and this is how Jim McKay described it. They described it as a little teeny country. Liechtenstein
Liechtenstein or Liechtenstein.
Liechtenstein.
Right.
Or Stein.
Is it a teeny weeny? No, but is it a teeny weeny country or an itsy bitsy country?
The bitsy country.
It's an itsy bitsy country.
Sure.
Now, this next one is a teeny weeny country that's in the same, basically down the block from Liechtenstein.
All right. Well, I wouldn't know because I'm only thinking about the name, the way it rambles in my cranium, remembering Jim McKay pronounced it or whatever. So what did I get? I got Laos,
Lebanon, Libya,
Lebanon.
Liechtenstein, or Liechtenstein. One of these, there was a ship named after this that was infamous about a century ago.
Really?
Well, it sounds like this. It sounds like that ship.
Like remember the Maine, but that's M.
Right, that's it. It sounds like
Laos,
that name.
Lebanon, Libya.
It's very hard to give.
Liechtenstein.
It's very hard to give hints with this.
Is there a country? Am I getting it confused with Libya? Is there another country called Liberia?
Liberia, that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. 5 likes to go to get to 100. And you've got Laos, Lebanon, Libya, Liberia, and Liechtenstein. You've got 5 of the nations. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 left.
I'll tell you what. This may be delayed as long as you've been waiting for Starlink to hook you up to a much better internet.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, Joe. I can't. I'm surprised they even got Liberia. I remembered Liberia, but I really don't have any other idea.
Well, Kitty got the hint from. She got it off the. I'm thinking. Hopefully, she got it off the hint from me, or maybe she didn't need the hint, but she's got it right. Mike Wells got the boat. The ship that I was referring to was the Lusitania, which sounds kind of like the name of the country, Lithuania. Lithuania.
Oh, Lithuania. How could I have forgotten Lithuania? I worked with a girl who was on WABC radio. She was the weather girl back in the early and mid 80s. And she worked with Ross Britton. In fact, she and Ross got married. Her stage name was Rossa Kay.
Oh, I remember her. Yeah. I remember her.
Her real name was Rossa Bubelis. and she was of Lithuanian extraction. So yeah. So there you go.
The other small nation that is basically across the street from Liechtenstein is Luxembourg.
Little Luxembourg.
Right. I mean, it's basically as big as the distance between the Delaware toll off the bridge and the Welcome to Maryland sign. It's probably even smaller than that. Here's Latvia.
Right.
Okay. So a Laos.
Which is the one that you said I would never get?
Well, because I've actually never heard of this one. It's spelled Lesotho. Lesotho. Lesotho.
Oh, I've heard of Lesotho.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard of Lesotho.
I've heard of Lesotho. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where is it?
I don't know. Africa, I would think.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. No, I've never heard of it. So okay. So that's what. Now here's your bonus question. The chairman hitting super chat tonight, and he also says that one country appeared on Seinfeld concerning George. I don't know which one was that.
Latvia?
Latvia,
Is it
okay.
Latvia?
Latvia, yeah, Latvia is the other one. Yeah, so we had Laos, Latvia, Lebanon, Lesotho, Libya, Liberia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, and Luxembourg. Now, 98 likes, and here's the bonus question. 2 more for 100,
I thought
folks.
that was the bonus question.
No, the
I
bonus.
thought that was the bonus question.
No, the bonus question is: what is the only country that begins with the letter W?
Walton Fritchen Stamer.
Nope.
The only one that starts with a W?
W. And whoever put the 100 like the 100th like up there and took it away, put it back, and they just did. W.
Voltenhammer. I
No,
don't know.
no. Not a shark, but
Not a shark?
not a shark, but
A lawyer?
yes, right, and it starts with the letter W. We already did the L's. There's no country name lawyer, although I'm sure they own a few. No, not a shark, but
I don't know.
a shark is a big animal of the sea. What's another big animal of the sea?
Oh, whales?
Thank you so much. Can I bang my head on the desk?
Oh, wait a minute now. Hold on. I thought
But-
Wales was simply a part of the United Kingdom. That it was part of England.
Wales is part of the British Commonwealth, but they have a separate thing going on.
Uh-huh.
It's all, it's all, the Queen runs the show, and then they all got their own little governments. She doesn't waste her time with that sort of stuff.
All right.
She just waves her scepter and wears her crown and just says, you know what, just do what you're supposed to do. Because I'm the big cheese around here.
Well, look at this, Joe.
bless her
We have
heart.
105. We have 105 likes.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
Awesome. Okay, that is absolutely great. Let us now save our energy for tomorrow and for Friday. So thanks, everybody, for being here and putting up with us. Actually, had a minimal amount of technical issues tonight. Seems like we got the audio issue solved. I know there was a couple of instances there where we got the little popping noises going on. I closed a few windows. I don't know even why I should have to do that because I have a super powerful computer. So all of a sudden lately, it's been misbehaving from that respect. So I'll probably have to do a little cleanup in there. Anyhow, thanks everybody for your patience and for your continued support and loyalty. Those of you who hit Super Chat tonight, thank you very much for doing that. As always, this is how Joe and I do our living, make our living these days. So, if it pays a couple of bills, we're okay with it. So thanks very much for hitting Super Chat. And again, tomorrow night, probably a 9:30-ish start. So sorry if it's too late for some of you, but it's kind of the way my schedule's going tomorrow. So 9:30 Eastern time. But we will be on Friday and we will be on Saturday as well as Sunday. And in fact, we probably are going to have to...
It's like the winter time all of a sudden.
Well, we may have to move the Sunday show too because I got to run to the airport early in the day. So.
Oh, okay.
All right. Have a great night. Everybody be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Nighty-night.